I'm live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I'm going to bring David in on this. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. Let's try that. Why is that not working? Here we go. Where's David? At Invisible 3. David, are you there? Sorry guys, we'll get there. Just trying to bring David in. I'm new to this technology. All get comfortable, get yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, glass of wine. Let's see, where is David? David, are you there, my friend? The invisible. I think he's still waiting to come on. Hi. I don't see David. I don't see David either. Let's try that. No? Let's try. David, my brother. Ah, there he is. Haha. Here we go. Here we go. Waiting, waiting, connecting.
Oh!
You... Hey!
Hang on a minute. Am I?
You're on your side.
I'm on the side. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. Let's try this.
Oh,
Look
at
you! God. Oh, so good to see you.
Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you? How's your day?
Do you know what? I've had such a lovely day. It's been great. I'm at the studio. I'm playing and just enjoying making stuff as usual, really. Today I was pretending I was in Talking Heads, sort of Remain in Light era. Just
not bad, that stuff, right? Pretty good.
It's okay.
It's all right, isn't it? I mean,
kind of stands up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it was okay when it came out.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny, I've had exactly the same, like music. I've done music today. I've had a new piece of gear and I've just been delving into it. And it's like, I'm so inspired.
Oh, the beauty of new toys to confuse us and ignite the imagination. Is it, I have to ask, is it a kind of upgraded Cloncental?
Well, I know you always found my Cloncental pedal very funny. Well, it's not a pedal. I've been very lucky. I've been hooked up the lines, the Line 6 stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Mark at Line 6 and Yamaha sent me over one of their things called a Helix, which is an all-in-one thing. Do you know that?
No, but that sounds really fun.
Do you know what? I mean, I've been in pedal land for like, I don't know, 20 years or something, and I haven't had a multi-effects unit that I've really loved since the Korg 3. I'm sorry, everybody out there. It was coming.
What are these guys talking about?
It was the Korg 2. Anyway, so they sent it over, and he sent it over, and it's extraordinary. It's just like... it's unbelievable. I was getting into these things called harmonic delays today with different keys and stuff, and it's just like, it's so up my strata. So
we've lost you, haven't we? That's it. You're just going to be in sort of DL4.
But you know what's funny? It's like, I think so this is the first time I've done this for a long time because I haven't been doing any music at all. I don't know about you, but I haven't done any music because first of all, I got the virus that took me out for a while, and then I didn't feel like it, and I just wanted to be silent. And then we've had the mother of all cleaning out and sorting and moving and all this stuff. And today's the first day, and I realized, you know, how happy it makes me. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah,
I think I've been a bit grumpy and moody recently. and with good reason, not with good reason, but we're not moody, but kind of like just, you know, I think we should get onto this, but like, you know, with everything that's going on in the world,
sure,
you know, and then suddenly you play some music and it's like, is it escapism or is it just total, you know, it goes somewhere deep, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's so essential for me. It's so, yeah, I can't not get in the sandpit. I start to kind of fall apart if I'm not exploring that side of myself. Yeah, it just feels like such a, it's a way of instantly accessing, or, you know, not always instantly, but it definitely feels like the main line to the good place, basically.
Yeah.
It's just when you're in a sort of safe environment, exploring and playing and following your intuition and allowing your imagination to kind of be open. Yeah, it always feels very, very healthy for me.
Have you been making music during this time? I mean, has it been a creative time?
It's been a really, really creative time. I mean, I completely understand, you know, how people might feel like not being creative when there's so much going on and it's been so overwhelming and strange for everybody in different ways. But I just found, I mean, I feel so privileged really just to have a space that I love, that I can go to, that's really close to home, and you know, just quietly get on with things. So we just created a structure for ourselves very, very quickly when stuff started to kind of descend into the unknown, whereby, yeah, we just, you know, would create together. It was an opportunity for me to come back to lots of unfinished work, things that I've wanted to do, passion projects, and also just to reconnect with myself. It was just so wonderful. That's been one of the kind of blessings of this period, is that it's created a space for me that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And I've been able to really kind of mine that creatively. And yeah, so I've been in the studio pretty much 6 days a week.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, it's really,
I'm happy.
really
I'm
good.
happy because I want to hear this stuff.
Yeah, I want you to hear it too. Yeah, no, I managed to finish a draft of one record that I'd started a while ago, which is a really project that's really, really close to my heart. So I'm so happy to have done that, and that's kind of had this knock-on effect of just, yeah, I don't know, I'm just on a bit of I feel like I'm on a bit of a roll, in a good place with this stuff. So
I love the track that you did with Ruby that was on Radio 3. Can you, for people who are watching, because I heard that, and I just put it into context. When I got ill, I don't know about you, when I'm ill, I don't want to listen to music. There's just like, I'm like, you know, I'm like, I don't need my brain to go there in a way. And I've been out here in Wales, and it's been extraordinary. And one of the things I realised is that we're hearing the bird song and the sound of the trees and the wind and nature. And so every time we put on the radio or whatever, I've been like, and tracks that I've loved, I've heard, or tracks that have been really dear to me, just not resonated. It's just like, it's just like noise. It's like, you know, Tom used to use this term, the fridge buzz, you know, and it was like the fridge buzz or the tumble dryer that's too loud. You know, those really loud tumble dryers. And why is this room so? Oh, it's the tumble dryer. We've got this tumble dryer that is so loud. It's in the kitchen, and it's like we have to shout above. Honestly, we should get a quiet one. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other tale of home appliances.
You, on your Instagram, you did a link for the track that you and Ruby, your wife, did this track, and I just thought, I mean, Ruby's voice is, you know, it's extraordinary anyway.
Sure.
But it just was one of those. It like the Laura Marling album. I heard "Song for Our Daughter" the day before. I heard it and played it twice, and that and the track that you played, I just kept playing it. It was beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Ed.
Beautiful.
That's so, yeah, it was an amazing thing to do. I mean, yeah, so for people who don't know, my better half she's a classical singer, she's a soprano, and she's definitely the real musician in the household. And I'm basically terrified of her.
Being found out, imposter syndrome.
Yeah, just massive imposter syndrome. And her musical interests are really, really broad, and she's always saying to me, like, when are you going to write me some music? And I always say, just give me 10 years, and I just need to learn a few things about composition and writing for The Voice and text and stuff, and then I'll chuck a few ideas your way in about 10 years time. That's been the kind of line in our household. But when we went into lockdown, I was really, really aware of, just wanting to support her, and she's someone who records very regularly but performs a lot, and that's kind of that's what she does, and that's her vocation. And she was about to enter her busiest season, like many people, and was gearing up to doing a ton of extraordinary performing, and that all obviously just went out the window. And I was just really conscious that she was going to need an outlet, basically, for her creativity. And I was quite worried about her, and she has a way of being just very in the moment, and she was actually kind of fine. And sometimes things hit her a bit later, but I was really aware of that as she was kind of looking at the landscape ahead and gradually realizing that she might not be performing for a very long time. And then this opportunity came up. The BBC asked us if we'd do something, or if she would do something, and she was looking at a composer called Erilyn Wallen, who's a fantastic living composer, and Rubes had just got her songbook and was just looking at the music and sort of said, let's try this song. I'd really love to try these songs with you. And we've rarely played together, but it was just such a lovely kind of organic, unpressured way to explore making music together. And there was a really nice link as well, because Erilyn is I've never met Erilyn before, but her brother is a fantastic trumpet player called Byron Wallen, who has been a huge inspiration to me, and I used to play in one of his bands some time ago. So there was a really nice connection there. And we just started looking at her music, and came down to the studio and recorded something together for the first time, and then the BBC played it out, and that then turned into a kind of rhythm for us. So we've been recording every other week. So we'll just select some repertoire and learn it together at home after dinner, and then come to the studio every other Sunday. And it's been so extraordinary.
Wow.
Working with her and playing with her has really been life-changing. It's been absolutely amazing. She's so amazing.
I think you might be onto something there. I'm not sure. Yeah. I think you might be onto something. Honestly, it was really stunning, and it sounded really natural. And I think that just the simpatico, the way you two are, and obviously the deep love that you have for one another. Sure. Just one very mundane question: what guitar were you playing? No pressure.
You know what? I was playing this piece of shit that some guy gave me.
Was it really?
He's trying to offload like some, I don't know, some sort of knockoff Strat.
Some dodgy old thing down from Peckham Market, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely stolen. Whatever it was. Yeah. No, I was playing the Sustainer. Rubes absolutely loves that guitar. Brilliant. She just loves it, and it it was the one that we went to, and yeah, it just felt great.
I
love that
thought,
thing.
you know what I thought it was, because I obviously heard it and I was just like, I think that's the EOB Stratocaster, if I'm not much mistaken.
A little bit
If
of
my
product
ears,
placement
yeah.
there.
Exactly. That's why I liked it. I'm very
Yeah,
shallow.
yeah. I was.
We were actually getting onto that. What guitar were you playing?
Beautifully done.
I'm an arsehole.
Yeah, I always knew this about you.
Yeah.
I knew it instantly as soon as we met. That guy's an absolute arsehole.
He's a dick.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, obviously, the biggest thing has, like, what's been happening in the last 4 or 5 weeks with Black Lives Matter? What's going on in your heart and in your soul, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to ask you the same, really. What a time! What an extraordinary time! I mean, there are so many layers and there are so many triggers. It's been really, really overwhelming, emotionally, really, really intense, exciting, fatiguing, painful. Yeah, just all of these things rolled into one, and it's just so extraordinary when, I guess, I feel like I've been preparing for this moment all my life in terms of what's going on kind of in the landscape, kind of culturally and stuff. But at the same time, nothing could have prepared me for what it feels like at the moment. There's such an intensity. I think the surge of dialogue and communication, it's so welcome, but it's also really tiring. So I've just been in a state where I'm reflecting a lot and observing myself and trying to kind of honor decisions that I made a long time ago around these issues, really, which was that I wanted to be someone who was prepared to have dialogue and to be open and to take responsibility for what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, basically. So it's been really, very interesting, really interesting time. How about you? How's it kind of impacted on you? And
Well, for me, as a white privileged man, it's been, I really have just listened. I've been listening to a lot of really good. Do you know the Toure show? His podcast. I've been listening to his. I love some of the guests he has. There was an extraordinary podcast that I heard the other day. Let me just get the name from it, and I'll put the link on it actually, because I think people should. The podcast is called On Being with Krista Tippett, and it's and she did it with Resmaa Menakem, who's a therapist, and he was talking about racism and the trauma that's held in the physical body and the cellular level. So, I'll put the link on it. I don't want to go too much. How have I been feeling? Well, I just wanted to listen because I feel like, as a white privileged male, I have to listen. And it's been interesting for me because, me, I'm sure like most people, white people, I'm not saying I'm colorblind because I observe, but I love different colors. I love that's my understanding of life is that we are all connected. We are all one. So that about me. But I also look back on my life and go, God, you know what? There are a lot of things like I could do. I could have done more. I can do more. And just I think it's been really things that you accepted. Like when I was 18, I realized this. I worked in this pizza restaurant in Oxford between school and university, and I was, Oxford, very white. My school, I went private school, all white. There wasn't anybody of color, and I went to work in Oxford in this pizza restaurant called Sweeney Todd's. And it's really interesting when I think about it, because I was one of like 6 barmen, and the rest, the floor staff, were all girls. All the floor staff were all white. I was a barman, I was white. and all the barmen were white, and all the floor staff. And in the kitchen were where all the black guys worked who lived, on the estate in East Oxford, in Blackbird Leys. And Roger, who I love, was the head chef. And, and he was into hip hop, and he introduced me to hip hop, and, back in, about 86. But everybody kind of accepted it. It was really weird. So anyway, without getting into too much detail, it's not about me. It's about, it's about listening. And I think that what I feel like, and this is a question that really for you, but my feeling is we ain't going back. This is like, the fear that this will be buried and kind of we'll move, and it's just raising our head up, this is too big for this. This is in all the fear and all the, because change and what's going on, it's the energy is extraordinary, isn't it? It's so powerful. It really is, and with coronavirus, I don't know about you, but you have really good days, and then you have days when it's so overwhelming. So it's, what am I trying to say? I always do this. I don't. It's like, oh yeah, I feel so. I mean, but listen, it's not about whether I feel optimistic. I feel optimistic, but it's whether you feel optimistic. Whether.
Well, I think it's such an important thing to express, because I think there's a really natural. I don't know. There's a couple of things I want to respond to, but just on that aspect of like positivity and hope and an atmosphere of hope and believing in our capacity to change. Human beings are extraordinary. We're so adaptable and so capable of change. And I think, often for whatever reasons, we kind of lose sight of that. But that's the power that I really, really believe in. And I think it's really, really understandable that there's a sense of fear or cynicism around our capacity to sustain this dialogue and to continue to be engaged and actually, see this thing through and move to a more kind of enlightened state of affairs. But I had a really interesting conversation, not actually related to this issue. I was asked to contribute to a book about a guy, a really interesting guy, is writing about the jazz scene, I guess, in the UK and what's been happening over the last few years. And he's been talking to a lot of interesting musicians and sort of trying to contextualize the journey of what's happened across a couple of generations, and essentially why jazz is suddenly cool, having not been cool for quite a long time in this country. And we had a really interesting conversation, and one of the things that came up was he'd been talking to a lot of musicians who, I suppose, when there's a kind of surge of any kind, an interest in something or a kind of cultural shift, it can be very natural to sort of try to kind of attribute a value to what's going on. It's like, is this important? Is it good? Is anyone doing anything good here? Will it last? Or, is this just like a trend or whatever? And I think something that's happening, that happens with music sometimes, and certainly in the kind of jazz community, is that when young musicians are coming up and making music and it's different from what came before, or it's really not that radically different from what came before, and people are sort of looking at it and going, hang on, this is like a sort of watered down version of what happened sort of 40 years ago. I think we can lose sight of what's really going on a deeper level, which is essentially that seeds are being planted that will, we don't know what it will give rise to, but that something is coming from what is happening at that time. So, if I think about my musical history and what I was listening to when I was 16, there were some things which were blowing my mind, which were kind of maybe quite superficial, or like not that, would not necessarily be seen as like that profound, but there were seeds that have been planted in my musical journey that have taken me on journeys that I would never have expected. And I feel like with what's going on around race, especially for young people, what I feel very excited about is what seeds have been planted, and where they will, where those people will take those seeds, if you see what I mean. And I guess it's really easy to underestimate the power of a conversation, or the power that comes from reading something or being introduced to a new idea. But I can think of conversations in my life that have totally changed my life, and put me on a course, which I'm still on to this day. And I think that's what's exciting to me about the dialogue that's happening now. And I'd long reconciled myself to the fact that, whenever that was going to happen, or whenever that does happen, it's going to be a messy and painful and awkward process, and there's going to be so much for everybody to learn. And that's what learning looks like, just like a toddler learning to walk or whatever. It's like it's a messy business, and people are going to get hurt. And
change is a huge thing, isn't it? It's a massive thing. It gets, it's that weird thing that as human beings, we sort of almost like we resist change. We kind of, because it takes you out of your comfort zone, but it's what has to happen, and it is uncomfortable, and it does get messy. But it feels, to me, it feels like this is all part of what's happening. I feel there's like a shift in consciousness happening. It's like a wave through the planet, and some people are getting it and some people aren't. And those people who get it feel it, and it's almost like, it's like, and those who don't go like, what are you talking about? Are you mad or something? But what's going on is we're at this time in history where it feels like a light is being shone on all the nefarious activities and the ways and structures that we've been. And I think what I think has been amazing about the whole coronavirus and slowing down is, and I was talking to Susan about this the other day, is that, in context of like, how can I be a better anti-racist, or how can I be structurally? Because, for instance, look in my world in music, road crew, when we're touring, I've done a lot of touring in the last 25, 30 years.
You've covered some ground.
We've covered a lot.
Played a couple of venues.
We've done a few. We played the odd place. I won't go into Madison Square Gardens or,
the Enormodomes.
The Enormodomes. Yeah. I could digress, but there's a serious point to this. But yeah, the Enormodome. But in like the Radiohead crew, we've had no people of color. I mean, we've had, and so I've been having these conversations like, well, all these structures need to change. But coronavirus and the slowing down of life, of course it's been horrendous for so many people and challenges. But, if you're going to look at the positive aspects, it means the busyness of life, of normal, and which was the old way, it was that you'd engage with something, but life was so full on, so busy, that it's not like you'd forget about it, but it's just like, where's the time to do that? Do you know what I mean? Now it's changed, and it feels deeper, and it feels like, I don't know, it just feels different. But then, of course, I'm not black, I'm white and privileged. So, but I just feel it's like part of this whole thing, this bigger thing that's happening. And it's funny. I heard, was it Sean Penn, who obviously does a lot of activism in America and stuff like that, did some amazing work getting ventilators. He was getting ventilators out, organising them, because the federal government were inept a couple of months ago. But he was interviewed, and he said, I am more optimistic now because, change is actually happening. It looks like, of course, there's lots of shit happening, but change is happening. It's moving. And I had this thing probably about a year and a half ago, or even, no, actually it was before Christmas. I had one of those moments, because, the climate and everything has been dear to all of us. And I remember I was going along, the stats are coming, like, how do we fucking change this? How does this? And of course, suddenly coronavirus comes along, and it changes it. So what am I saying? I'm saying, there are a lot of people out there who are scared, who are fearful. It's an interesting, and I want to just not digress, but so we had a delivery guy here the other day from Leicester. And for everybody who doesn't know, Leicester is it's a town they had to put it down into lockdown because the coronavirus has been an outbreak. So I said to him, he delivered, I said, are you all right? You know, how's it in Leicester? And he said, oh, I said, all right, I'm outside Leicester. And this he's a white guy, nice guy, older than me. Mm-hmm. And then he said to me, he said, well, you know, that coronavirus, it sort of all came about after that Black Lives Matter march in Leicester. And I went, oh, hang on a sec, though. You know, I've been down in London. We've had a lot more Black Lives Matter. We've got no. Yeah. So how does that quantify? And it was like, oh, yeah, I see what I mean. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This guy probably is not, I don't think he's a racist. He's just scared. Because his world is being challenged. Like a lot of people's world is being challenged. He's just like, oh my God, it's that black light. He's lashing out.
Sure.
And I thought, like, after this, what's the Resma Menakem, after this podcast, so he's very much about each community has to, you know, he's a real believer. Like the white community has to deal with this themselves. You know, everybody's saying we need to integrate and stuff, and of course, but the whites need to talk amongst themselves as well. Yes. And I was wondering, well, maybe part of my role is as a white privileged male is to talking to people like that who and kind of not reassuring, but just pointing out the anomalies of the things that they're saying. Maybe like, well, hang on a sec, there's a Black Lives Matter. We've had loads in London.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like
it's challenging those kind of norms or those ideas or those fears and having those conversations. I think.
And this guy wasn't a bad guy. This guy wasn't a bad guy. He's not like, you know, he's not racist, but he's got some inbuilt structural racism and fears of life. And, you know, we're in that whole time, isn't it? That it's blaming the other, you know, it's like, you're the cause of my fear. And it's like, it's because it's that flight or fight thing where a lot of people are defense, so they want to blame other people. So I think it's, you know, it's gonna be challenging, but it's on its way. So that's, you know.
I think for me, like what has been really exciting, and you know what feels really, really positive. I guess it's another way of saying what you're saying, but it's just a shift in thinking around, you know, because I feel like for so long the dialogue around race has been so simplistic.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, people kind of getting their heads around the idea of systemic oppression is just it's so crucial, because it shifts the whole conversation away from this idea of I'm not a bad person or you're a bad person. It's like it's a deeper thing than that. It's like if we live in a system that basically just completely renders inequality this kind of indentured state, then you know, and no one's prepared to look at that because it triggers some sense of like being personally attacked or personally challenged. You know, that for me is where the problem has resided for so long, and it's why when I look back at my life, I know there's been so many times where I've just felt hurt, or I've just walked away, and I haven't even attempted to kind of challenge or question what I'm seeing in front of me. And you know, I guess in the last sort of 10 years or so, I've really tried to make a conscious decision to change my approach and to speak out. But that's been a hard thing to do when you are. I mean, it's a really extraordinary thing. Like being someone of my scale, I know I'm not as tall as you, but I'm probably as wide as you are tall. And it's really strange when you find yourself in situations socially or professionally where you are not seen and not heard. It's when you're as big as I am, you know. Wow. and when that clearly has something to do with the color of your skin, you know. So it can take a lot of courage to sort of create a platform for yourself to be able to say what you think and feel. But what I do feel now is that there's a greater willingness to listen, because people's thinking is shifting towards a more kind of nuanced way of looking at these issues. And, of course, people will react defensively and will not want to be challenged. And equally, I've had to hold myself to account, because I've found myself in situations, even in recent weeks, where that natural kind of human tendency to kind of shut down and withdraw when something is painful. It's a very kind of human and easily understandable response. But I'm trying to sort of haul myself up on that, and just honor honor the promises that I've made to myself, to just to be true to myself. And part of that, there's a really empowering aspect to it, because it requires you to ask yourself whether you believe it's possible to do that with love, essentially. Is it possible to remain calm and to express yourself in an open way, and to say, I'm upset about this, or have you thought about it from this point of view? And I can think of a number of instances in my life where I haven't managed to do that, but I've had that conversation in my own mind, and now I'm just trying to embody that all the time, I guess. But I think it's so crucial that is rooted in an atmosphere of hope, and faith in people, and patience as well. And it's interesting to me what you say about, I really just commend that you realize that you have a responsibility and a role as a white person, because I think a really kind of simple analogy, everyone's been in a relationship, right, where things aren't going well or something and you're upset with the other person. And I think what we hope for is that we can express those things and have a dialogue about them, and that the person on the other side, the person who has maybe caused an offense of some kind, will basically look at themselves and think about it. It wouldn't be, if I was in a relationship with someone and I were to express that I was upset with them, I wouldn't want them to turn around to me and sort of say, tell me what to do. I'd hope that they would have the agency to kind of think about, how they would like to, transform the situation, basically. And I think that's part of our power as human beings. And I think we should celebrate that and embrace that aspect of ourselves, because it's just fundamentally kind of empowering and positive, basically. So yeah, all of these things are just, they're really, really interesting for me. But it's been amazing. It's been amazing to just hear voices that weren't, until a few weeks ago, it felt like they weren't heard, or they were contextualized as angry, or, reduced in that way. And it's really exciting to me that stories are being told that need to be told. I've been watching an amazing documentary series. It's on the iPlayer, and it was actually made quite a long time ago, and I feel awful that I haven't seen it before. It's really been life-changing. I think it's called Black British: A Forgotten History, and it's just, it's just remarkable. Just watch it. Just anybody out there, I would say, you'd be doing yourself a favor. I think you'll be inspired. You'll be challenged. As a black person, I've wept several times. Just from both with kind of joy and pride and sadness, intermingled, and learning new things about my heritage, basically, and what has basically been kind of written out of history in a way, and our history is so important to understand. If
we need those stories. We need, I said this, that when I learnt the Industrial Revolution at school, it was all about the wonders of Britain and Isambard Kingdom, Brunel, and all this stuff. But we got no truth. We got no truth, and the truth being that they didn't teach us that the the economic pillar, i.e. the means to fund that, came from sugar and slavery. And we were, and it's, and this needs to be redressed. And these stories need, the truth needs to come out. And I think what's strange, I see, a lot of people who want this, but there are also a lot of white folk who don't seem to want to see this for some reason. And that's the bit, that's the bit that I find I struggle with. I find really hard. It's like, why are you threatened by this? Sure. Why are you threatened by the truth? Because we're not blaming you. We're not blaming, but we have to, we have to look at our ancestors. We have to look, I've been thinking about my ancestors. Some of whom, and a lot of them, I'm a complete mongrel. I'm Jewish and Austro-Hungarian Jewish on one part. I'm, Irish. I'm, Belgian via America down the southern states. But at the time of, I remember going to stay with my great aunt in Texas, and she used the N-word. And she went to church 3 times a week. This is in 1980, and I went to stay with her in 1982, and I just so anyway, I think it's really important that people don't feel threatened by, white people don't feel threatened by this, because it's the truth. It has to come out, and there has to be a dialogue, and there has to be an apology. And there really does. It's like, I know from the Irish thing, when I grew up, we used to go to Ireland a lot, and and I loved it. But I had cousins growing up who were my age, and I remember one time, 1975, I'm 7, and we go to a cousin's farm, and there are 8 kids, and my mum and dad go inside to have a cup of tea and a few bevies with the cousins, and I'm left outside with my sister to play with our 8 cousins of various ages. My parents come out an hour later, and I'm stood on top of our maxi car, and they're kind of banging the car with sticks, saying, "Take that for Oliver Cromwell." And I'm like, the point being, and I get it. I'm not responsible, but the history and the wounds run deep, and I understood that with Ireland. And for all of I'm not a fan of Tony Blair, but what he did with the Irish peace process, him and Mo Mowlam, was extraordinary, and a huge move. And I studied Northern Irish politics at university, so it was a real passion. The British apologised to the Irish, and that's a massive thing. And nobody says, "Oh well, if you," then you get into this whole thing. We didn't have to pay them any money. It wasn't about that. Don't think about that stuff. Don't think about reparations, because people go, "If you apologise, you have to pay reparations." Bollocks to that. Do the decent thing. Apologise from the depths of your heart, and that is really important. An apology needs to go out, and people, white folks, should not be scared to apologise. We all, if you're in a, like you're saying, if you're in a healthy relationship, part of being in a healthy relationship is apologising for when you fucked up. And not that you ever do, but I do a lot. In my relationship, I fuck up a lot.
I've never.
No, you're perfect. I know that.
Yeah.
But I do a lot.
I'm so glad Ruby doesn't have Instagram. She would literally be on this. My phone would just blow up.
But apologising is an important thing, and it's it's the way you learn.
Absolutely.
It's the way we become wiser. It's the way we stay humble. All these important things. The way we, Anyway, so it's I wanted to talk. I really wanted to talk to you because I love you about this, and I also want to talk to Nathan, who get the American perspective, get the and hopefully I can hook up with him, and we can chat. But it's just I'm just so happy this is happening. I really am. I feel like and also I've got to tell you another thing. I am fucking bored of the white male patriarchal kind of system that has been on this planet for so long.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
had a go, hasn't it?
It's had a go.
It's had a turn.
It's not great. It's not
really,
great.
Yeah,
A world where there's more respect, lack of hierarchies, more integration. That, I mean, I don't know about, but that for me is, I'm always happiest when I'm in an environment where, like, you know, strong females, strong men, you know, it's all represented, you know. Absolutely. So, you know, I think we're moving in the right direction. It might take.
It might take some time. It could take a little bit of time because
it's not going to happen by Christmas, is it? No,
yeah,
well, it'll be over by Christmas. Will the whole world be? Yes, yeah. We've only got 7 months or 6 months, 5 months.
I think we can get it done.
Yeah, 140 days, shopping days till Christmas.
Yeah, Boris will get it done, I reckon.
Boris will get it.
Yeah, he just gets stuff done, doesn't it? Whether it's Brexit or, I don't know, just Corona, he just gets it done.
He does. He's the thing is, I think about Boris, what I find it funny about, I mean, he's not funny, but he has looked, I get the feeling like he's looked at his O-level history and he's gone like, when the outbreak started, it's like, Churchill, we need a Churchill figure. So he comes out with the Churchill stuff, right? And he's not the orator that Churchill was. The last month has been like, right, we are at an economic disaster. It's like, who can I look to? Oh, FDR, the New Deal. And it's just like, do you know what I mean? It's like, he's not awake. He's not, there's a really interesting, I've had a theory about this for a while. And there's this book called, Laura Marling was talking about it, called Wounded Leaders. And these are leaders, they went to boarding school, and I didn't board, but I went to those types of schools. And I boarded, but I didn't go to top one. I went to a shabby weekly boarding thing. But I've seen those people, I know those people. And when you send a child, age 7, to go and board, it does irreparable emotional damage. And, you know, it anyway, this book talks about, and I've been thinking about this one, it desensitizes these children, go from their home environment and they're put in a boarding environment. And so it arrests their emotional structure, their emotional development. They can't feel. They don't have an ability to properly feel and to have compassion and empathy. It's not in them because they had to get tough. Yeah, it was shut down at a very early age. And they think that the thing is, like with Boris, some people think he makes the right noises. Oh yeah, but there's no authenticity. And it's kind of not his fault. It goes back to the way he's educated. Anyway, I listen, you know.
No, I mean, I'm totally with you on that. It's such a deep thing. I've not read that book, but I've talked to a lot of people about it, and that idea of you know, basically people who end up in positions of power who come from, you know, these kind of elitist sort of schools or whatever, you know, that they've been traumatized by community. Their experience of community is a traumatic one. So how can they then be empathetic? And I mean, you know, I went to a range of schools, but I did go to a boarding school when I first came to England. You know, I really so my dad was working for the United Nations at the time, and his whole kind of, he sort of bought into that idea of kind of that British education, that sort of style, because in a way it had completely transformed his life, you know, and he thought that was the best thing that he could give us. And I remember I'm the youngest of 8, and so I was the last to go, and I was desperate to go, but only because I really missed my brother when he went. And, you know, I was begging my mum, and she didn't want me to go because she instinctively kind of knew their stuff, basically. But I managed to persuade her, and I went a bit later. But there are many moments that stay with me, and I didn't stay in that system, and I'm so glad I didn't. But I remember coming home for half term the first time, and you know, I can remember my mum's face expression and the love and concern in her eyes. And we were in the garden, and she asked me how I was, and I remember saying, I'm fine. You
Yeah.
know,
I'm fine.
I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I remember observing it in myself, and I must have been like 10 or 9
Wow.
or something. And I remember thinking, God, I think this is the first time I've lied to my mother about how I feel.
Wow.
You know, I basically learned how to do that because, you know, we were essentially taught to do that. We'd write letters home every Sunday, and a teacher would stand over us and read what we'd written. And if we said we were sad or homesick or anything, they'd make us write the letter again.
Oh my God.
You know, so, and meanwhile, my best friend, he was at another school, a prep school he'd been at from the age of 7, where they would have, you know, assemblies every morning where they were told they would run the country. You know, so it's you know, when people kind of think that you've got a kind of chip on your shoulder about this stuff, or you're oversimplifying it, it's really entrenched, this stuff, and
It's really entrenched.
it's really, really problematic. And I
Yeah.
kind of know what you mean. It's easy for someone like me to sort of demonize Boris Johnson, but you've kind of got to look at it from just a fundamental human aspect in a similar way that we've been talking about racism, and we need to kind of understand the implications of systemic oppression. We need to understand where these people are coming from, and you know, and the values that have, you know, that have been instilled in them, and how troubling that is, you know, in relation to the power that they wield, and the absence of having kind of any skin in the game in terms of like being concerned for others, and really, you know, in a really kind of holistic way. Yeah.
Can I just ask one thing? I just want to finish on just Ennio Morricone and what he meant to you, what his music meant to you, because, you know, he died this week, and you know, for me, he was his music has been massive, and you know, but I'll go after you've said something.
Sure.
Maybe has he been? I mean, maybe he hasn't. Maybe has his music been important, or?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the stage of my life where that music really hit me, it was through the films.
Yeah.
It was as a little boy growing up in Vienna, and those films were just like, oh my God, they completely did something to me.
Which
And
ones? Do you remember the ones that really?
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
You know, that trilogy of spaghetti
for
westerns, basically.
few dollars more. Yeah. Fistful of dollars.
Fistful of dollars, and we just I used to watch them over and over again, and my neighbour in the village that we lived in Austria, across the street, who I would sort of play with most days, that we would basically pretend we'd reenact those spaghetti westerns, and you know, we'd take his dad's like kind of cigar butt ends and sort of pretend to be Clint Eastwood, and so that was kind of my that he was in there from an early age, really, and I just couldn't believe that music, like what it sounded like, and it was almost like terrifying in its kind of actualization. I just can't get over what that music feels like and sounds like. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, and when you sort of your first it was that thing when those films was that the sound of it perfectly matched the scene, that desolation, that open space. And then so you have that when you're a kid, and then when you get older and you're doing music and you're learning about recording and stuff like that, you suddenly you hear those sounds in isolation. And Morricone was bandied out around in Radiohead and me and the guys from about 95. So bends through to sort of the end of OK Computer, or when we were making OK Computer. Morricone was a name, along with Miles Davis and, you know, Pet Sounds and stuff like that. But that when all those cries and those shouts in the music and those choruses and it was almost like Eli Wallach was shouting that, or screaming it. It was it's extraordinary. And I mean, I was thinking again about like, well, how did he, you know, is there evidence of in, you know, certainly in Radiohead stuff, like his sort of almost direct, and of course, do you know, we've never spoken about, I don't know whether you, yeah, I mean, oh, so you know the album OK Computer, there's a song
I
called...
love it when you do this.
Okay. I don't take it for granted. I don't go, we had an album called OK.
Yeah.
So you know...
Just...
Do you know the song called Exit Music for a film?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was done for... Tom wrote that, and we did that, recorded that for Romeo and Juliet. And Baz Luhrmann sent over the stuff. But when I was thinking about songs, I was like, oh my God, that is such a Morricone... And we would bandy around in rehearsals and recording with like Morricone reverb or Morricone twangy guitars, or even Morricone meets Dick Dale surf guitars, with lots of, you know. But we did Morricone was massive. And I remember when we were touring the Bends that I had a Morricone CD with, you know, all the stuff. All the stuff, and I love The Mission as well. I love The Mission soundtrack.
Oh, God,
I thought that was extraordinary. Gabriel's, was it Gabriel's Oboe? That was one, or Gabriel's... No, that might have been a porn film or something. No, sorry.
Gabriel's Oboe.
Sorry, I'm really... No, is it somebody? Sorry, I don't want... No, let's not go down that. Yeah. Anyway, it sounded like... sorry, that was really poor taste. That was really bad.
I enjoyed that. I apologise. That was a great moment.
But anyway, he was massive, and I think that, you know, it's interesting as well. I know that I saw that Adrian Utley, I mean, I can tell from Portishead, and that time Portishead emerged, that whole sonic... There was a real Morricone vibe, and maybe because we were kids who'd grown up like you with spaghetti westerns, and the spaghetti westerns were the first time you saw something that was just like, well, this is really slow and long and atmospheric, and wow, it's completely like any of the other cowboy films. Yeah. So it was kind of in our DNA, and then when it came to making music, we used those. We'd hear this music again, and we go, oh my God, it's so. I mean, it's so musical, but also the techniques and the reverbs and the, you know, the metallic sounds. It's very metallic, and, you know, a lot of. And mass choirs, and it's just, you were trying to emulate though. We were trying to emulate a lot of that sound. Yeah.
I mean, I can totally see that and hear that, you know, and I think it's that thing, isn't it? It's really interesting sometimes when you make those connections, like with your band. You know, if I think about your band, it's not like necessarily so literal. But it's like I would just assume that was there for you because I can sort of feel it in the DNA and the atmosphere of the music. And you know, his music. It's interesting actually because I was talking to I saw my friend Tom Skinner posted something about his other music, not soundtrack music. Because I've never really listened to his other stuff, but I realized when I saw that post that I had this sort of dual response where I was like, oh man, I can't wait to listen to this record that he'd recommended. But also I'm sort of so terrified by his work because it's just so good. Yeah. And it sounds so good. It's like, I sometimes have this thing where someone has such an idiosyncratic and amazing vision and executes it so well. Yeah. Where I'm like, it's almost gonna depress me. It's gonna be so inspiring that it sort of simultaneously depresses me because it's just so so kind of complete in a way. And I mean, I know it's silly, and it won't be like that when I listen to it. I know I'm just going to be transported and inspired. But yeah, he just amazes me. What he did musically, it's so cool. This, and I love how, you know, with those things, they're just completely universal. I defy anybody to not be transported by those atmospheres and those sounds. Basically. Yeah, it's like, it's just, you know, it's the real thing, isn't it?
It really is. It's proper.
Yeah, proper business.
Proper.
So you're up in Wales.
Up in Wales
at the moment.
Yeah. Trying to get
everyone doing good. Everyone's okay.
Yeah, everyone's doing good. The kids are really great. They were good. Susan's good. She's painting, or starting to paint. And yeah, I feel like, I mean, yeah, everyone's doing well. But again, it's one of those things. It feels quite, I'm very aware. I'm very aware that a lot of people not doing well. So
Sure.
you know, it's that.
Yeah.
But then again, it's that thing, isn't? I've had like my best day for weeks today, and it's important that we all have good days because, you know, as someone very wisely said to me a few years ago, said, you don't help the world by bringing yourself down.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You're not helping the world. You know, you've got to be part of the, you know, we can't always be like that, but yeah, we're all good.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think, you know, of course it's important to kind of acknowledge the difficulty in life and